Hi everyone, in this tutorial I want to do a couple of DoubleCAD XT examples. As you would know, DoubleCAD is a free version or also known as a light version of TurboCAD. Once you have completed the installation process, you will then have your DoubleCAD XT5 button or icon on your desktop, and then you can launch the software. If this is the first time that you are opening DoubleCAD, I would suggest that you go to the Get Code Online option, and then you will copy and paste the code that you've received via email. Then you will be able to access your DoubleCAD immediately. I always get this box when I start DoubleCAD, although I have already registered with the activation code. And that's why I always say Get Code later. Once I've done that, DoubleCAD will open anyways. And once that is done, you will be able to just say close. Here we are using the normal white metric because we need the metric system, and I'm going to select it as my default. So I'm going to tick that button and say OK. Now I have my canvas open to me. This is an infinite canvas because this is the model space. So here at the bottom left, you can see where the mouse is. There's the model space tab, and I can also click on the layout tab. So the layout tab gives you the page size that you have selected. So we will discuss that at a later stage. So what you are, in this case, we are just going to use the model space for this introduction lesson. Later on, we will also set up our layout and what is called paper space in TurboCAD, but this is the same. So in this paper space, we will set that up as well. So yeah, the purpose for this, we will also get into more detail when we do that lesson. So in the model space, where we have an infinite canvas, we can draw wherever we like, we can start wherever we like, but I would always suggest that we do the following by setting up the system first so that we know that our settings are all good. So we have selected the metric template, so that is sorted, but now we want to go to options, and in options we are going to go to the drawing setup. In the drawing setup, you can see here we have different options like display, grid, advanced grid, space units, angles, layers, background color, print styles, and all that. We don't use all of these. We will only use some of these in our setup. So firstly, with the display, we basically are not going to fiddle with anything here as it is here by default. I will leave it for now. But with the grid, we will double check a few things. It's set to ortho. You can set it to isometric as well if you want to use the isometric grid for isometric drawings, and polar, which we hardly ever use. So I always use the ortho grid or the isometric grid. Then we see that we have our point style for the grid, a crosser style or a line style. So you can play around with that. It also gives you a preview of how that grid looks. But if your grid's selection is off, you won't see that on your canvas. But if it's on, you will see whatever selection you have chosen here. And that is your preference. It doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to leave it on ortho because we're just going to use an orthographic example in this introduction lesson. And then we are also going to go and say, let's make it lines for the grid. Although I am going to switch off the grid once I've started, but just for the intro, I want to leave it on now. And then with the spacing, I want to have the grid lines 5 mm by 5 mm spaced apart, and I leave the colors. You can change that if you like, but I wouldn't fiddle around with it if it's not a problem. Advanced grid, nothing here I'm going to mess around with. I'm going to leave it as it all is. I'm just making sure that everything does show millimeters. That is all that's important for me there. Then with space units, this is very important. We want to use metric. We are going to work with an absolute scale, and then we also are going to make sure that our printing scale is 1:1 full size. That is the actual size of your drawing, so that if you want to print it out, that you have the correct size. But you can also use this for future reference if you want to draw drawings on a different scale, like for instance a site plan, you want to make it a 1:200, you can do that over here as well. But for what it's worth, I am just going to use the 1:1 full scale because obviously I want to print this out on an A3 page where the scale is accurate, and I know I have set up my layout of my A3 page correctly. And then another thing that's important is here that we are using the millimeters in the metric system, obviously, and then everything must be millimeters. The precision, many people leave it at 2, but I like to make it a 1 for our curriculum purposes. Then the decimal, we leave it at that. The text height, that we will fiddle around with if needed, but we always use either 4 or 5 millimeters for our labels. We will leave this on because we are working with the metric system. Good, so the angle I leave because I want to keep it at 0. Layers, this is where we will add our layers. So obviously in CAD we need to make sure that our work is well structured, and that's where you use layers so that you draw your different layers of different aspects of your drawing on the correct layers. So, and this is very easy. So by default you have the 0 layer, which is the basic layer, and then we have one here already that says dimensions. We can just click on new, and then we can go and we can click on that layer 1 that pops up there, and we can change the name there to, let's say that's the answers layer. You can call it the solid lines layer, whatever, and click on OK. And then I want to create a new layer again. Click on the layer 2 default that comes up, and I'm going to say constructions. And enter, and we will also create a new layer for center lines. And so we can continue to create more layers. For now, I just want to use those just for the purposes of this lesson. And we're going to say OK. So if there's anything else that you want to add or change there, you just again go back to options and then go to your drawing setup. And then you have all those functions. I'm not worried with the background color. I want to keep it white. So for printing purposes, print styles, I also leave that all alone because I don't want to mess with anything there. So all of this is now set up. So now you can see the grid lines, which is now 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters. So I particularly don't like the cursor as it's given here. You can change that as well. But I'm just going to leave it for the time being. But what I want to do is I want to deactivate the grid here. I don't want to see the grid. You can leave it if it doesn't bother you, but it is troublesome for me. So I'm going to go to options. I'm going to go to drawing setup, and by the grid option, I'm just going to go and untick the show grid. And if I say OK, I will have my clear canvas. However, the grid is still there, but it's just not visible. So you can just reactivate it if you want to see it. So now what I want to do is I just want to draw a normal basic model in CAD just to get into it. Here I have an example of an isometric rectangular box. So I'm going to use this. It's in isometric now, but I want to draw it in 2D orthographic. So that's what I'm going to use as a reference when I do a quick demonstration now in DoubleCAD. Here on our far left, we have all our drawing tools. Here on the far right hand side of our screen, we have several other features that we can use to manipulate these tools that we've drawn. So if we draw a line on our canvas, we can use the tools on the right to manipulate it or do different things with what we have drawn on the canvas. So let's start by drawing an X and Y axis so that we can draw this model that we have in 3D just now in 2D. So we're going to start with an X and Z axis. So I'm going to start anywhere on my canvas. I'm just going to click and drag that line. Now, if you want this line to be at 0 without, try and get it to 0 as you pull it, just hold in the shift key, and then you will see you can drag it and it will stay in the orientation of which you are pulling it. So you can go either horizontal or vertical orientation while holding the shift button, and it will stay either at 0 or at 90 degrees. That's your option. So I'm going to go and draw just a line, and then it continues to draw the line. But what you need to do is you either just right click and say cancel, and it will stop drawing. From time to time, you will also see a pop-up message like this. You can just read what it says and follow the link or whatever, or you can just go and close it. So now that I have my X and Z axis set up, I just want to draw a vertical Y axis. So I'm going to go back to the line tool and I'm going to more or less just judge from there. While holding in the shift key, I'm going to draw a Y axis that divides the X and Z axis from one another. And I'm again going to right click, cancel. Now I've got my X axis on the left and I've got my Z axis on the right of my Y axis, the vertical axis. So what we want to do is we want to now draw margin lines that will give us proper spacing. I'm going to now go and use my constructions tool. So I'm going to go here on the far left hand side. When you hover your mouse, you will see there is a quick note of what tool it is. So click and hold, and then you have all the different options. I'm going to use the construction circle here. If you move the mouse around, you will see that there's sometimes this little pink diamond that appears. Okay, so that is your snap aperture. So in order to now get that snap aperture to be correct, there are a few things that we need to set on our snap tools. There are several ways that we can change our snap options. And to do that, we go to this button here at the top right. If we hover over it, it will open the slider, or you can just click and it will open. And now you will see here are all your line option tools. There's some other tools that we might discuss later on, but what we're looking for is these snap modes right at the bottom. So if you don't see something, you can just click on these little double arrows and it will open or close that area for you with more options. So what we want to select here as default, and this is for our syllabus, everything that we always will select, is we will have this vertex, and in DoubleCAD it's called endpoint. We want that option, and we want the middle point option always selected. I'm going to deselect the center option by clicking on it, so it's gone. I'm going to deselect this quadrant point. I don't need that. I am going to deselect the extended ortho, and I'm going to deselect the apparent intersection. So I will leave this magnetic point because that's that pink little diamond that you see when I move around over the lines that I've drawn. So if I go back to tools at the bottom, you can see clearly what I have here. Another one that I would like to activate is the intersection. Good. If you want, you can have the grid activated. Myself, I don't prefer doing that because if I have the grid activated, it sometimes jumps to a point that I don't want where it sees the grid. So, and because I'm not drawing with the grid, I am not selecting that. There is also this option nearest on the graphic that you can select if you want, but for the time being, I'm going to leave that unselected. And then if you want no snaps activated, you just click on that snap, no snap option. However, for all of your CAD drawings, you have to have your snaps activated. So I would definitely make sure that the no snaps is not activated. If you want to snap anywhere on your drawing and it doesn't show that diamond magnetic point, then it's possible that you have accidentally selected your no snaps or that your no snaps are active. So just click on it to deactivate it. So there are the 4 snaps that I want you to make sure that you have selected every time. Now when we want to draw on our canvas and I want to draw in the margin lines to space my beginning of each of the different views properly, I'm going to go here to the construction circles tool, and I'm going to make sure that I've gotten the circle construction selected. So with that selected, you must be very careful that you don't just go and click anywhere and snap, because it might be that there is a snap reference point that you are not aware of that it snaps to. So that's why I will zoom in and make sure that when I move my mouse around that little pink diamond snap aperture is definitely snapping to the point. So zooming in and out is crucial in any CAD software. So you will learn that mistake very quickly, that if your drawings are inaccurate or there's some issues that you find, normally it's because your snaps weren't proper and you didn't snap exactly on the lines that you wanted to. So with that selection, now on the intersection of the X, Y, and Z axis, I now have my snap aperture, and I can freely move my mouse And I can now go and look at the bottom left of my screen. There you will see radius, diameter, circumference. That is to indicate to you what is the size at where I am dragging my mouse now. So in order to go and type in what you need, you can either say tab and it will jump to whether it's the circumference, the radius, the diameter, or whatever that you want. So if you come and you tab past circumference and you keep on tabbing, you will be careful, and then once you've tabbed about 2 or 3 times extra, you will come back to radius. So that's where I want to be. So I'm going to tell it I want a radius of 10 millimeters, and I'm just typing that in and pressing enter. Now the circle construction is exactly 10 millimeters from the intersection of the X, Y, and Z axis. Now that I've drawn the construction circle that is a radius of 10 millimeters away, I can easily construct the margin lines. So I'm going to go here to the far left hand side and I'm going to use the vertical construction line, and I'm selecting that. Now I have the option to zoom in and make sure that I snap exactly at that distance of 10 millimeters left of the Y axis, and then also 10 millimeters to the right of the Y axis. Once I've done that, I go back to that button in the far left hand corner and I'm going to use the horizontal construction line. Select that. And again, make sure that I zoom in. There's the pink diamond aperture visible on the snap, and I'm going to snap there, and then the same at the bottom. So now I have the margin lines guidelines, so I can easily go and draw in my margin lines on those construction lines. Now, these construction lines, if I zoom out, you will see it's indefinite. It is infinite in length, and therefore that's just background constructions. So please differentiate between construction lines that you use for your constructions of your drawings and then these construction lines that are used as a term in the CAD software. I like to prefer to these CAD construction lines as water lines because they are infinite, they are embedded into the canvas, and you have to clear them. So if you want to draw in the construction lines that are part of your drawing and answer, then I'm going to show you in a lesson later on how to use the line tool, and then just change the properties of the line tool to be light gray and also to be on its own layer to be a construction line. But here, please differentiate between the construction line of the CAD program, that's for all CAD programs, and then the construction line that we refer to when we do our constructions on paper drawing. Good, so that difference must be clearly understood. So I like to refer to this as a water line. So if I do refer to the water line in the future, it means it's the CAD construction line that I am using. Good, so with that said, we are going to go now and just quickly show you how to clear a construction line. You can clear all of them, or you can just clear some of them. Good, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit and then go to clear, and then you will see they are all, and that will basically, if you do that, will clear everything on your page like this. The problem is in this free version, if you did that, everything is gone. You have to redraw it from scratch. There is no undo for that option. So if you have gone edit clear, it throws away everything and you have to redo it. So just give me a moment to redo all of the lines very quickly. If you want to get rid of only certain construction lines, or in other words water lines, you can go to edit clear at the same place, but this time you will see there's this one that has this little red cross through the line. You just click on that one. So be very careful of the all, because it will clear everything and you'll have to redraw it, because in this light version you can't undo that selection. So go to constructions, and then let's say we want to draw clear this construction line there, then you just click on it and it's gone. So every one that you click on will be gone. So if I go Control Z here, it will allow me to undo that step, but not the all. Please be careful of that. So if I want to put that my horizontal construction line / water line, I just select that. I'm going to zoom in, make sure that I snap properly, and there we go. We have everything back again. Good, so now with that selected, now I'm just going to show you very quickly how to get margin lines. So I'm going to use construction lines now for that, because it is in the background. It is just part of my planning. So I'm going to select the line tool, and I'm going to go and I'm going to draw now anywhere from an intersection, and we're going to lengthen that line to where we need it to be. But so let's just use a reference points. Okay, now there's two ways. We can first now select which layer we want to place it on right here, which is normally the best option, or we can draw the line first and then select it and then go and select the correct layer for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do both just to show the example. So firstly, I am going to go and change this now to the constructions layer. So now CAD knows that this must be a construction line, holding shift, and I'm going to draw it more or less in line with that line. Now also, if you move your line, your snap aperture to the end of the other line, it will go to exactly the same length. Now you can either right click to end this, or you can just press escape on that side. But now you don't want this line here on the x-axis to stop there. So now there's a tool that you can use, and this is here on the far right hand side, where you're going to use your line length tool. Now if you see here on the right hand side that the line length option is not available, what you can do is go here onto the menu toolbar and right click there, and then this window will pop up. Once this pops up, you will look for the modify option. So let's go and look for the modify. There it is, right below the menu bar. So if you select modify, you will see this additional toolbar that opens up. You can click and drag it to where you want. You can put it here on the right hand side, which is what most people prefer, but you can put it on the right, you can put it on the left, wherever you like. So I'm going to put it here on the right hand side so that I can easily access my tools from there, and close. So now I have the tools here on the right that I need. So I'm going to go and select the line length tool, and I'm going to go to this line, and I want to lengthen it. So I'm going to click on the side that I want to lengthen and drag it all the way to the other side. By the way, I'm using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Now to do a finer zoom, you just hold in Control and it will zoom in a little bit finer. Good, but you'll get used to that. So now what I want to do, the alternative way of drawing the other margin line is I'm going to go here to the constructions tool on the far left, and I'm going to use the vertical construction line there, and I'm going to just give a light construction line there and right click or escape, and then I have a reference point here that I can use with my line tool. So I'm going to go back to my line tool, select the line tool, make sure that I'm on the right layer. In this case, I want to draw on the constructions layer, but I also want to show you how to select a different layer. So I'm going to go back to the 0 layer. And so in this case, the construction line is on the wrong layer, but I'm going to change it afterwards. So now what happens if I zoom in, I can snap to that intersection, and I can now hold in shift and zoom out while I'm scrolling with my mouse button. And then I'm going to just snap to that length of that line and press escape to exit that. Now I have that line for the margin line below the X and Z axis as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the select tool, this arrow tool right at the top left, and I'm going to select that line. Now that that line is selected, you can go and manipulate that line in whichever way you like. In this case, I want to put it on the correct layer. So I'm going to go here to where the layers are, and I'm going to select now the constructions layer. And that's how you can easily put any line onto any desired layer, even before or after or while you are drawing. Now I want to do the vertical margin line. So for that, I'm just going to give myself a starting point. So I'm going to put a construction line there so that I have a reference point from where I can draw my margin line. So I'm going to go and select the line tool and make sure that it is on the constructions layer. And then from there, I'm going to snap on that intersection, hold shift, zoom out and draw it down. And I'm going to make sure that it snaps to that length, escape. And then I'm going to do the same. You can also use the scroll bar here if you don't want to zoom in and out the whole time. And I'm going to hold in shift and I'm going to drag it to the desired length, press escape to get out of it. And then if you want to, instead of zooming in every time and go out, and you are here and you want to have this immediately on the whole maximum space of your canvas, you will see that here at the toolbar there's a zoom extends option. Now if you don't see that little rectangle with the blue arrows, you click and hold on any one of these will appear on your toolbar. So if you click and hold there, you can see if you select the zoom extends and you select it, it immediately, wherever your drawing is, if you lost your drawing on the canvas, which can happen, just go here to zoom extends, control backspace is the shortcut key, and there you go. There you have it spread out to the maximum size on your canvas. So that is a nice way to extend all the stuff to the maximum size on your canvas. Now, if I want to start now with the different views, remember we are busy drawing, preparing our drawing to do this rectangular box. So we're going to make our own measurements very quickly. So in order to do that, I'm going to obviously use the rules and understanding of the principles for the third angle of a graphic projection, because that's what I want to do, is draw this in third angle. So therefore I know my top view is there, my front view is here, and my right view is here at the bottom. And we will have a 45-degree mirror line here. So let's draw in the 45-degree mirror line using the construction line tool as well. So I'm going to go now here to the intersection, right at the intersection of the X, Y, and Z axis. Select that, and now I have doggy on the leash, if I can so express it like that. So this is where I have selected the reference point and I have this line, and I can do with it whatever I like. So I want to make this line at an angle of 45 degrees, and I want to make it a certain distance. So if I want to know or get an idea of more or less how far I want to do it, I can zoom out and hold it like that and see it's more or less 130 millimeters length. So let's say tab on our keyboard, and then you will see there it is now lightened the angle, and we can say 45, and we can tab again. Be careful not to enter, because then it's going to keep it at that distance that is there. I'm going to tap it through till it gives me the lengths box in blue, and then I'm going to say 130 millimeters, and now I'm going to enter because that's all that I wanted to use there, and then I'm going to escape to show that that's the end of the line. And I'm going to do zoom extends, and there we have our 45-degree mirror line at 130 millimeters at an angle of 45 degrees. Now I am going to draw on my front view that rectangular box. So we also know that where our margin lines connect with one another in this front view, that's where we're going to start. With that selected, I'm going to go to the starting point or anchor point of my front view, and I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to say 50 millimeters for the full length of the model. And then I'm going to go to the vertical construction line and add for myself that line there to indicate that's where my length of my model is going to be. Then for the height, I'm going to go back to the circle tool. With that selected, I'm going to go back to the starting point of my front view, and I'm going to go and say that we want this height 100 millimeters on the front view, only 100. And if I go to zoom extends now, it will just show me a lot of construction lines. So I'm just doing my planning here, and now I'm going to use the horizontal construction line at the top left, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to move this down a little bit, and I'm going to make sure, please make sure that you don't select the y-axis, because then that's not 100 millimeters. Make sure it's on the one that you started your measurement of. So that's where I select that. Now I've got the total distances of my model. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw now the lines for that. Now you can draw, in this case it's just a rectangular box. You can use this selection of the rectangular box, or you can just draw the line line by line, or you can even use what we call the polyline to draw your lines one by one, and this is this selection here. So if you hover over it, you'll see it says polyline, so you can choose whichever way you want to draw it. Now if you want to cut the surface and hatch it, you will use the polyline. Let's show you how that works. So if I use the polyline, I'm going to start at the starting point, make sure the snap is correct, and you can just draw any direction you have as long as you are using your reference points that you have created. Go there, and always remember where you started is where you end off with, so you can go and select that. Or if you know that's your last selection point, you can right click and then say either close or finish. Now if you want to create a surface that you're going to hatch and cut, you need to use the close option, not the finish option. But we're going to just say close. And now if I use the selector tool and I click anywhere on that line, you will see it selects that rectangular box. Now I'm going to use my circle tool to measure off again. Now at this stage you can actually clear all the constructions that you want. So we can go say it clear and say all constructions, which will clear only the constructions, not the whole drawing. And if you escape out of it and you go back here to your line tool, you will see that you have your solid outline of that rectangular box. If you want to now do the projections from your front view to the top view, you can use this vertical construction line, zoom in there and make sure you snap, and then you project that line up. You already know that it is 50 millimeters, so what we want to do is now select that and use the circle construction tool. Go to the starting point or anchor point of your top view. You know that distance is 50, and you can click on it by snapping on it. And now you also have the reference point here at the top. So I'm going to go and select the horizontal construction line and snap to there. Now I have the shape for my top view. So with that selected, I'm going to use now this rectangular box just for what it's worth. Click on that and then snap it to there, and there I have my top view. Draw in the right view now. Let's just show this first. Let's say edit clear all constructions. Now if you want to project that now to your 45-degree margin line, you just snap to it and use your vertical construction line on the 45-degree margin line. You just snap to that, and you already have then the width of your right view. And if you want to get the height of your right view, you just go and snap here to the base of the rectangle. Make sure you're snapping to the right point, and there you have it. There you have your right view. Now since we are there, we can just as well draw the right view, and we can either use this rectangular tool or the polyline, or just line by line. It doesn't matter. If you use the line by line, you're just going to go and click and drag to the snapping points like that. It will create the polyline itself in this new version, and then you're going to zoom out and come back. You can either right click and say close, or you can just go and make sure that you click on this point that you started and then escape out of that. And then if you use your selector tool, you will see that your right view has single lines, not one complete box like we did in the previous view. And here you can then select, and then if I want to create the grid lines or the margin lines, if there weren't any, I could have done it now with my construction line. And now I just want to draw construction lines on the 45-degree mirror line. So I'm making sure that I'm drawing on the constructions layer. So I'm going to draw from there to there, make sure of my snaps and down, because that's part of my constructions that I show how I got to the answer. And now I know that some of these lines are not on the right layer, because I have been drawing on the constructions layer now for my solid lines as well. So how do I quickly fix that on CAD? So on paper you would just draw dark solid lines over it, but here in CAD we use the selector tool, and then we click and drag it to the left out like that, and it will select that whole shape there, because these were all lines that we created as a rectangular box. I see that it's on the wrong constructions layer, so I'm going to go to the answers layer, and then I can change my answers layer's thickness to 0.5, and that's what I want there for the printout to be proper and visible. So if I've set it to 0.5, you can clearly see the difference between a solid line and a normal line. So I'm going to escape out of that, and then I'm going to use the selector tool, and I'm going to do the same now for the front view. I'm going to select that, make sure that it shows the box so that all the lines are selected, and then I'm going to use the answers layer. So now it's on there. Now this one here, you will see it's going to be different because we drew it single lines, right? So for that, we're going to use the selector tool, do the same with those two because those are selected. But if I hold in the shift button now and I click on that line, I know that I have to select that line, that single line, hold in Shift again, and then select the top, the second one there in this case. And now all of the lines are selected. Now I can go to the answers layer and select that. Now all of my solid lines are on the correct layer. Now there's a way to check this. So if you go to your arrow selected tool, you can obviously select those lines and just go and check on which layers they are. But in this case, our X and Z axes and the Y axis are on the 0 layer, and I'm going to leave it like that. So that's why if I select it all, you will see there's nothing appearing there. But it is because we have multiple layers selected. So if we want to exit that and go out to here, and I just select that one line, which I know is a margin line, you can see it is on the constructions layer, which is correct. Good. Now if I want to now select that top view, you will see it's answers layer. If I select that front view, you'll see it's on the answers layer. But now if I select that line, it only selects the one that I clicked on, because we drew these as single lines. So but it does show it's on the right layer. So I can click on that line and see it's still on the right layer. And if I click now on this one, I have to select the one that is applicable, and that is in this bottom one, and that will show that it is not on the correct layer. So now I click on the drop down and I'm going to drop it on the correct layer. And now I do the same with this one. I select the second option, and that one is on the correct layer. So that's always a good option to go and double check that your layers are set up correctly. And now that you see the canvas like this, I want to clear these construction lines, and I want to say go edit, clear all constructions. And now I see only my lines that I've drawn. Now, if you want to have a better contrast or change the properties of any of these lines, you can just go and select them and change them. I want to go and change all of these construction lines. So I'm going to first select those. Now I'm pressing Shift, and I'm going to go and select the other lines that I want to select, and that one. So I'm going to just select it. Now everything seems to be selected. Let's just change the color so that it's more obvious to see. So I'm going to change that to gray. I'm going to leave it at 0, because construction lines must always be 0. It must be a continuous line, not a broken line. So all of that is correct. So I'm now going to just press Escape. And now I see the contrast, but I see that this line is still a dark line. So I want to select that line again, and it's on the answers layer, and that's the problem. So I must have selected the wrong one. So to fix that, I just go and select the constructions layer, but you will see it's still black. So I'm going to show you how to change this now. So to change this for all of the lines that are on the constructions layer, I'm going to leave it as it is now, and it's just to prove how to do it correctly. I'm going to go to the options button here, and I'm going to go to the drawing setup. Here by layers, I have the option of changing the different properties of my line. So here where it says color, I want to go and change the constructions layer to a gray color. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to go and select the gray. And now by default, any line that I draw on the constructions layer will be a gray line. So, or whatever other color line you want it to be. And I say, okay. So now with that set, I'm going to escape out of this. That line is still on the answers layer or a solid layer. So what I'm going to do is use the selector tool, select that line again. It's still black, but I'm going to go and select the constructions layer, and it's still going to be black. Why? Because I have to go and say that this line must be changed by layer. And how do I do that? I make sure it is selected, the line that I want to put on the correct layer. It is on the constructions layer, but I have to click on this color button here. And instead of going now to the selecting of the color, which you can do, you can go to this little icon here that says by layer. If you click on it, it automatically will change that line to the correct layer as set up in your layers panel. And once I've done that, I just want to go zoom extents, and there I've done everything that I wanted to do. Now obviously you need to do cleanup. You have to shorten these lines and make it, you know, a little bit less extruded. And in order to do that, we once again go to our line length tool, and you can then manually go and lengthen the lines to about 10 millimeters or so beyond the scope of the drawing. That is your decision. Or you can do this. You can go to the constructions line, draw a vertical construction line more or less where you want it to cut off there, and you can also use the construction line or water tool and cut it off wherever you like. The bottom one I'm going to leave as it is, press escape out of it, and now I'm going to use the line length tool, and then I can snap. Let me get a hold of that line and snap. Make sure that the line length tool is active, and just make sure that sometimes the line length tool just jumps off and it doesn't stay selected. So just make sure that you keep that. There we go. We've lengthened those. So I'm going to go and select the line length tool again and shorten it. Line length, that's what I want to do. Line length. So I'm going to just lengthen these last ones. Select the length tool, and there we go. And I'm going to go do zoom extents, and I'm going to say edit clear all constructions. And there you have it. Now my drawing is ready for saving, and it's also ready for printing. I hope you have enjoyed this first introduction lesson on DoubleCAD XT. So hopefully I will be able to make a few more that just jumps into a little bit more examples of how to use DoubleCAD.